lot of people are wanting to kind of get away from the social media treadmill, I call it. And so we're hearing more about blogging because it's more quiet, sustainable marketing.
It's having a comeback. And I think you're right. Anything you post on social, it's there for 30 seconds and then it's gone. But with a blog, you could be getting visitors to that blog post for years and years and years. Hello there, health coaches. Starting a blog can be a smart way to grow your health coaching practice when done right. Otherwise, it could be a huge waste of time. And I know because I started my own health and wellness blog 20 years ago. So how do you get started the right way? The easiest way? That's what we're going to talk about in today's episode. And if you want your blog to consistently bring clients to your door, of course you do. We've got a free event this June called Establish Yourself as a Health Expert with a practical, low-pressure blogging system to help you look legit and find clients. And you can grab your free spot at healthcoachpower.com/blogging. Now, let me introduce my good friend Jana O, who's joining us for today's episode. Jana, I love having you on the show. Thanks for being here.
Oh, I love being here. Thank you so much for having me again.
Is this like our 7th episode together? I feel like we've done so many.
It could be, yeah.
Always so many good things to talk about. And today it's all about starting a blog the easy way. I've been hearing from a lot of health coaches recently that they want to start a blog, even though it sounds like something that we were doing 20 years ago. Blogs are alive and well. Before we get into all of that, can you share a little bit about yourself and why you're like the perfect person to be having this conversation about blogging?
Sure. Yeah. So I've been in online business for about 8 years. And when I got started way back 8 years ago, roughly, I decided I would start a blog, and I decided that I would write about the things that I believed and was learning that my audience needed to learn and hear and understand more deeply to be ready to buy. And that's how I started my blog. And, fast forward, there's all kinds of things I could talk about. But, these days, all of the successes that I've experienced in my business came because I wrote blog posts. And now I help students with creating a blog that also brings them clients too. So I have a lot of health coaches and wellness coaches in the program that I run and in my audience as well. And they're my favorite. So I love helping your type of people get started and having to have a blog that, just like you said, is one that is actually going to give them ROI and bring them clients, not just be a passion project that doesn't actually bring them clients or do anything for their business. So, yeah.
Yeah, I know that kind of blog very, very well. That's definitely what mine was in the beginning. So did you hear that, you guys? We have like almost 30 years of experience blogging, which is insane. So if you guys have questions as we're going along, drop them in the chat over here on Facebook or wherever you're watching. Let's start with this idea that still blog?
Yeah.
Is it still a thing? Is it really a good way for health coaches to market themselves? What's your take?
Yeah. I mean, I always quote this guy from the 50s, Howard Gossage, I think was his name, very Mad Men vibes kind of guy, who said that people don't read ads. They read what interests them, and sometimes it's an ad. And it's the same thing with blog posts. I mean, people don't go looking for blogs to read today, but when you have a blog post that's about something that grabs their attention because it's solving a problem that they have, or really exploring what they need to do to get to a desire that they have, or busting a myth about something that they're like, oh my God, I did think that was true. Maybe that's why I'm not getting the results that I want. And I'm giving you some hints about what to blog about here already. Yeah, that's when people take notice and go and they read it, whether it's on your blog or, somewhere else. But one of the reasons why we love having it on your blog, there's a lot of reasons, but it's evergreen. It lasts. It doesn't just get lost in a, fast moving news feed. And it's close to the point of sale, if you will, in the sense that it's adjacent to, where people are going to go to learn more about you and your offers and to book with you, like a consult or to buy from you. So that's what I always say when people are like, are blogs dead? No, not at all. People have been reading blogs this whole time. But a lot of people are wanting to kind of get away from the social media treadmill, I call it. Sometimes people call it a hamster wheel. And so we're hearing more about blogging because it's such a great center for what people are really looking at as more quiet, sustainable marketing as well. But it still really, really works. So I think that's why you're probably hearing it even more than usual from your audience, because everybody's all about blogging again these days.
It's having a comeback. And I think you're right. It's a bit of the opposite energy of social media, where it's anything you post on social, it's there for 30 seconds and then it's gone, and you got to keep doing it and you got to keep doing it. And no one's ever looking at the stuff that you posted a year ago. But with a blog, you could be getting visitors to that blog post for years and years and years. So that has this like longevity that you don't get with social. Not to mention, I don't know if we'll have time to get into it today, but you create a great blog post and boom, now you have a bunch of content for your socials as well.
100%. And that's a big part of what I teach too, is like using your blog to make all your other marketing easier as well. So, yeah.
Kristen's saying over here, she loves that blogging is evergreen, much better than spending so much time on social media with posts that barely get seen. Yes, exactly. And like you own that content when it's published on your blog, as opposed to publishing it on Zuckerberg's platform.
Right. Where it's building his business.
That's right. That's right. Like you're building your own. So I'm always driving traffic back to my website to read and to listen in the case of a podcast. Maybe that's worth mentioning just real quick too. Podcast versus blogging?
Yeah, I think that both are great. I think a blog is the most low lift way to get started with what I call long form thought leadership content. Because something we didn't even mention is that when you have a blog, you're able to go deeper and really give people the shifts that they need to really feel confident and ready to buy from you. And that doesn't happen as much with like short form, content on social media. So a podcast does the same thing. But I think a blog is the best, most low lift way to get started. And I have a lot of students who you don't need a team for a blog. Down the road, you can get a team if you want, but you don't have to in order to leverage a blog. I have a lot of students who start with a blog with the intention of also having a podcast at some point down the road once they gain some traction in their business and they have grown their audience a little bit more. And then they go back and they use a lot of their main blog posts that they've written to create their podcast episodes. So you have that option, but I think a blog is the most low lift, easy way to get started.
And we love when you guys just get started and there's not a huge tech hurdle in the way and you don't have to hire people or figure out all this new stuff. You can all type words and hit publish. This is accessible to everyone. So that's a really great way of kind of deciding which way to go. Super important. We've got a couple other questions. I'm going to wait on those because we'll get there. But to get started, it does feel like it's complicated because we get questions. I want to start a blog, but how? How do I start? When really it's kind of like the most simple thing ever. So what mistakes do you think coaches are making when they're like, I want to start a blog, but...
Yeah, I think honestly, a lot of health coaches and all coaches and service providers for that matter really overcomplicate having a blog. And most of that comes from the idea that they think of a blog as something that you have if you're a blogger. And I always say you're not a blogger, you're a coach with a blog. And that those two things are very different. Blogger information, if you're looking on YouTube or anywhere about how to start a blog, most of the content you're going to see is going to be the kind of content for people who want to start a blog as a business. They're going to monetize with traffic, with ads, with affiliate links, things like that. We're not going to actually do that as health coaches. What we're going to do is we're going to create a blog that it's the center of our thought leadership content, and it covers thoroughly those things that your audience, again, needs to hear and learn and understand more deeply to be ready to hire you. And that's actually how we're going to monetize the blog, if you will, is we're going to get clients with the blog. So we're not going to worry about the things that bloggers worry about. I've got a lot of air quotes going on for those people who are listening on the podcast. All the things that bloggers worry about, we hear those things and we think, oh, this is going to be complicated, but it's really not. And then in the health space, there's this kind of added thing where a lot of the blogs, we think about blogs and air quotes, are food blogs. And food blogs are very complicated, right? There's widgets and recipes and all these things going on. And we don't do that with a blog that is there to get you clients. All you really need is a very simple interface. If you have a website, you just add it to your website. If you don't yet, you can start a blog, and that now is your website or the beginning of your website. And you just need a very simple way to literally just post the words that you're writing about the things that your audience needs to feel ready to buy. You just need a nice, easy to read font, good contrast between the background and the font itself, things like that. You don't need a lot of fancy formatting and widgets and images and all those things that sometimes people think of when they think of, I'm going to be a blogger if I start a blog. The other big thing that people don't realize is that as coaches and service providers, we're not going to blog forever. We don't need to blog quote consistently. We're just going to, the way I teach it is we create a capsule content library of 12 to 20 pieces of content that cover all those main things our audience needs to be ready to buy. And then we don't have to keep blogging consistently. You don't have to blog once a week or once a month or at any particular cadence. If you are a coach, you are just going to create this capsule library of content and then leverage it. So I think that's really where people overcomplicate things. Those two things is really where people get confused between what it's like to be a blogger, where your blog is your business, versus having a blog for your business that gets you clients. The latter is actually much simpler. And that's, of course, what I teach. Yeah. So those are the things I think that people do that overcomplicate it when they don't need to.
I just took a whole bunch of notes over here. I have like so many things to say, but the whole idea of that capsule library, I think is brilliant. Definitely nothing I would have thought of on my own, because it's always like you have to blog, you have to publish. Sometimes in the early years of my business, which was way back in the early 2000s, it was like multiple times a week I was publishing a blog post. And I thought that's just what you had to do. And what you teach is just the antithesis of that, which should make everyone go, oh, thank God, this is actually doable.
Yeah. And it's not that that advice that you heard wasn't valid or isn't valid now. It's just that it's not advice for us as coaches. It's what people need to do if they're starting a blog to make that their business, if that makes sense. So they're blogging in order to get enough traffic to monetize through the affiliate networks and the Mediavine and things like that. That's not what we're doing. It's a different method. And it's easy to get those things to conflate them and get confused and go down this rabbit hole of advice that's not meant for you. And I want to make sure people know they don't have to do that.
Well, that answers one of the questions, which is over here from Linda, about how do we monetize the blog? It's by selling your health coaching services. That's it. Because if you think about like monetizing with ads and, you know, like you said, a food blog, which crashes my computer every damn time I try to cook off a food blog. I mean, you don't have to be dealing in any of that. That's just a different game. You're just going to keep doing what you're doing, offering your coaching services, offering your 5-day jumpstart, whatever it is that you're offering. But this is a new way of bringing people into your world.
Exactly.
All right. Fantastic. I also wanted to just point out that, this idea of like establishing yourself or like thought leadership, you've used that term a few times. I had such a hard time in the beginning of my health coaching career thinking anyone would take me seriously. And you guys can just say something in the comments over here if you felt the same way. Imagine that you're talking to like, I don't know, your kid's teacher, and they're just like, hey, by the way, I really like that article you wrote about such and such. Because that kind of thing started happening to me. I would have the link to my website or my blog. It would be like linked in my email footer, which is just one of many, many ways that people might find your blog. And so if I emailed, for example, my son's teacher, like people were clicking on that. And then they would like go read all my blog posts and then they would bring it up later. And I was like, oh my God, like without even realizing it, I was building a reputation. So it'll start happening in these like small everyday ways.
Yeah. And it's so, it's still a little bit unique these days to find people who are, instead of, dancing on Instagram and TikTok and whatever, putting their thought leadership into a blog that's very helpful for the readers, but is more long form content. So it really positions you as an expert in a way that, again, social media doesn't. And I'm not saying social media is terrible. You have to give it up to have a blog. But it definitely adds a certain dimension and credibility to your online presence that social media doesn't.
Totally agree. So for the tech averse out there, and, Christy asked in the comments, I was going to make sure I asked this to you anyway, Jana, where do you post a blog? Formally, what is the thing that you are hitting publish on? Can you just give us a little insight there?
Yeah. So if you already have a website, the very best place to put your blog post is on your own website. And we could have a whole conversation about why, but that really is, you'll have to trust me, that's the best place. Because when people go to your blog, you want them to very easily be able to click to book a call with you, fill out your contact form, whatever that is that you want them to do next, sign up for your email list. You don't want to be blogging on someone else's platform. A lot of people ask me these days about Substack and Medium. And I consider those more kind of like, they're sort of like social media, if you will, or outposts, not in the way that they're used, but in the role that they play in your marketing. They can be good, but they're not a replacement for a blog on your own website. So that's the best place to put it. And then if you don't have a website yet, then you can start a simple blog with the intention to connect your website to it as you build your website. But on your own site is where you want to be, on a domain that you own.
Right. So for example, you could start today like a free WordPress.com site, and you don't have to put anything on it except the blog for now. Eventually you would add an about page and fancy up the homepage and all the other things. But essentially a blog is the beginning of a website. And you can do it for free on like WordPress.com, like I just said, or Squarespace or Wix. I mean, these all have blog functionality.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. And when you have a capsule library of content, you can always, like if you started it in one place and then down the road you wanted to move it, it's not hard because it's just some posts that you copy and paste. We're not talking about fancy formatting. We're not talking about 100 posts because you've had to post consistently for the last year, or 2 years or 3 years. So yeah, exactly. It's very simple. Simpler than people think it is.
Way, way more simple. And you know what? Those first blog posts, you just can get them out there. No one's going to see it right away. No one's going to even know where your URL is. So if you don't like it, you can take it down. You can redo it. I just find like just getting used to publishing something, right? There's just this like, oh my God factor. People might read this, but don't worry. They're not all lining up to read your blog immediately. You can kind of ease in.
Yeah, I would say that's kind of true. Although I like to think that with the way that I teach blogging, you're going to be creating content about topics that are so irresistible that people are going to run and read them right away. But I do agree with, I know you're trying to not scare people. And I'm like, no, they're going to see them right away. But I do agree with the idea that like you can always change them. Nothing's in stone on a blog. That's another thing that I love about it is it's not like podcast or YouTube where it's kind of hard to go back and edit it. And you kind of end up having to re-record. Whereas on a blog, you can update things. So I like that part.
Exactly. You guys, my first blog post was about flaxseed. So, I'm just saying, like sometimes you just gotta figure it out. But with Jana's advice, you'll be doing much better than I did, much more quickly. Now, more and more, of course, we're hearing about using AI, ChatGPT. If I want to start a health coach blog, shouldn't I just go to ChatGPT and say, hey, can you write me a blog post? I'm a health coach and I'm looking for clients.
So I think AI is great for writing blog posts. I'm not going to be the person who says like, oh no, that won't work. It has to be your thought leadership. You can use AI for sure. You just have to use it the right way. And the way that we use it inside my program is a reflection of how I believe that it is used best, obviously, because I figured it out and this is how we use it. First of all, you want to use it in your process for choosing your topics. And that's really, really important because if you just choose a topic and then ask AI to write you a blog post about it, but that wasn't a topic that was very high converting to begin with, then even if it's fast for you to generate that and get it on your blog, it's probably not going to move the needle for you anyway. So first, we can use it to really help us narrow down and come up with topics. And then you can use AI to write blog posts as well. I teach a 4-step writing process, and basically I would never teach you to go in and ask AI to write your blog post end to end. So I would never say like, I'm a health coach and I specialize in hormone health and I want you to write me a blog post about a certain type of hormone or about what people should do if they have, difficult periods or something like that. Because what you get back is not going to be close enough to your own beliefs and thought leadership. And it's not really going to be what Google likes anyway. And it's also not going to be what people really want or need either, because we didn't take the time to figure that part of it out to begin with. You're just going to get words and they're going to make sense, but they're not really going to like move people to action. So you can use it, but I recommend using it instead of for like end to end with the 4-step writing process that I teach. We use it in the second step, which is drafting. So what we do is we outline with our brains and then we draft using AI. And I have GPTs inside my program, which is a special ChatGPT bot that helps you do your draft that matches it up with like the high converting format that we use. And then you don't necessarily use it in steps 3 and 4. You could use it a little in step 4 because you're polishing things up and it can sometimes polish things up for you and make them more succinct and easier to read, which is helpful sometimes. But the point is that it can play a role in your writing, but you shouldn't be asking it to do the whole outlining and writing process for you, because otherwise you're just going to end up with generic gobbledygook that may be right, may make sense, but isn't really, what you need to actually convert clients with that content. So that's my philosophy on it.
Fully agree. Very, very helpful. It's kind of like having a junior level team member that can kind of help you get there, but you're going to put your polish on it and your voice on it. But we do love ChatGPT. I think the way you just explained it, we can make really good use without churning out generic content. That won't do a darn thing. We don't want this. Now, someone asked earlier about SEO, and I know we wanted to talk about that today. Some listeners might say, what the heck is SEO? So you want to just give us just a top line of that and how do we even approach it when it's such like a big topic?
Yeah, that is a big topic. So search engine optimization is what it stands for. And basically it's exactly what that sounds like. It's like it's kind of, lingo, but basically you're optimizing what you're writing to be more easily found on search engines when people are searching for things. And it is a good thing, but it's a very long-term, it's like a long game strategy. And for some people's blogs and topics, it can work out really well over time where you can start to rank on Google, but it takes a while because it's not just about adding the right keywords or about, it's complicated. There's domain authority, how long your website's been around, how many backlinks you have. There's complicated stuff. So I actually teach a concept called unforced SEO. And I do this because I noticed in my own experience and with all the coaches and service providers that I've helped over the last 8 years, that almost nobody can start a blog and try to write for keywords without getting frustrated and sort of feeling creatively stymied by those keywords and giving up and ending up with a bunch of half-written drafts in their Google Drive. So unforced SEO is the idea that instead of trying to start with keywords and writing around keywords, which for a lot of people who are watching have probably tried that and been like, oh my God, this is not what I wanted to write about. This is making me feel like I'm pandering to, a keyword when I really have these thought leadership ideas I want to share. It's hard basically for people to do that. So the idea is that instead what you want to do is you want to write the things, and I know I've said this already 10 times, but that your audience needs to learn and hear and understand more deeply to be ready to buy. And by writing those things over time, if your topic is search friendly, you could, and you will, if your topic's search friendly and you're writing thought leadership content, rank on Google over time. However, we don't wait around for it. We don't wait around for it to kick in because it's too slow. And if you wait for SEO and you're not doing any other visibility for your blog, it's going to be a long time and you're going to be like, okay, you're not going to survive that period. Basically, you need clients now, not, a year and a half from now when SEO starts, bringing you enough people that they turn into clients. Also, sometimes when people write for SEO, it's not very conversion friendly anyway. So they get traffic, but they don't turn into clients. So that's another nuance of the whole thing. But if you just write what your audience needs naturally, and you start with at least 10 blog posts that are just based on what your audience needs and asks, that's the very, very best way to start a blog that will eventually rank on Google. If you try to start with keywords, 99 times out of 100 people aren't able to stay, active with it and write those posts in the beginning. And then it kind of fades into the background and you don't do it anyway. So people get, like I said, creatively stymied. They can't finish writing because they don't like what they're writing. Things like that happen. So that's why I teach unforced SEO. And, I believe it's a great way to get clients over time to be found on Google. But the first step to it is simply writing what people need. And that's where we start. So hopefully that makes sense.
So it sounds like, yes, of course, SEO is a thing. You could go down a huge nerdy rabbit hole around that another time. But remember, also your blog will get read because somebody clicks the link that's in your email footer or, fill in the blank, all different ways that they can land on your blog. So it's something to think about. It's not something to obsess over because it's soul sucking to say, oh, I got to write with these exact keywords and you feel like a robot.
Yeah. And then to wait around for those results too.
Yeah. Although it does happen over time.
And it happens while you're doing other things. It's like while you're not watching the pot boil, all of a sudden one day you notice that you're ranking on Google because you wrote what your audience needed. But that's the best way to experience it for yourself and get into action.
So just to recap, and also Christy's asking about what software she needs for writing. I mean, to get started with a blog, you don't need to spend any money. Right? The platforms we mentioned earlier all have free versions to get started with. Would you say there's anything else that a health coach needs before they could sit down and start typing away?
No, I mean, with my method, it's like you need someplace to write in the beginning. So maybe Google Docs, which has a free version, a free ChatGPT account. If you want to use ChatGPT, it's optional, but if you want to try it, you could use that. And then, like you said, you can start a free blog in the beginning too. So yeah, like on WordPress.
And if you wanted to put a picture on there, you get yourself a free Canva account. Now you got a graphic. I mean, this stuff is all like readily available. It's not specialized tools that you have to pay for. And I think that is fantastic for all of our coaches that are just going. Yeah, we love it. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Jana. I do love this topic because it's so accessible for everyone. We're glad that you're here.
Thank you.
And if this has been helpful for all of you, don't forget we have a free event this June. It's called Establish Yourself as a Health Expert, with a practical, low-pressure blogging system to help you look legit and find clients. And you can register for free at healthcoachpower.com/blogging. Jana will be back for that. So I love spending time with you, and I always back anything Jana says. Like, she's smart. That's why she keeps coming back on the podcast. You guys want to sign up for this event and join us and hear more of what Jana has to say. We hope we'll see you there. So thanks for joining us, everyone. We'll see you soon.